Next on the Professional Rule Breaker.
My name is Brad Koch, and I am a business coach with foresight. I enjoy listening to the Professional Rule Breaker because who doesn't like breaking rules? Kathy has some amazing guests, and she shares all kinds of tidbits inside of the interview. So you're not only learning from the guest, but you're constantly hearing nuggets from her. So if you're not listening to this show, you need to be.
Welcome back to the Professional Rule Breaker Show. I'm your host, Kathy Walterhouse. I always say my name, but I think by now you guys probably know who I am. But as part of the whole Professional Rule Breaker, I love bringing other rule breakers onto the show to help you move to the next level. And I think my next guest really fits that profile. He is known as the coaching's bad boy. And he's a Marine Corps veteran and also a veteran in business. And he believes every single meaningful improvement in his life came from a coaching moment, whether he was mentored or he was mentoring someone. And today he spends his time exclusively working with small businesses and helping them transition from working in the business to the business working for you. So I would like to welcome my guest, Brad Koch.
Hello. Thank you so much for having me.
Of course. So I want to start off with this whole coaching's bad boy.
Oh, man.
Where did that come from? And you know what? That I have to say that's near and dear to my heart because I have something in my office it's a bad kitty. It's from a place that we were at a couple years ago in Colorado. There was a place that was called that, and as soon as I saw it, I was like, "My God, I got to go there."
I gotta have it.
Yeah, exactly.
For me, it's the story isn't as cute as that. Just, I think it's too physically bald guy with a furry beard and tattoos going into a professional environment can bring pause to people's first impressions. But I like to think of the bad boy of coaching more or less focusing on things that others might just disregard and focusing on things that make it easier for my clients to see progress. And those two things together, I think some would call me a bad boy. They might even call me something else that we don't want to say on your show.
That's okay. All sorts of things have been said on this show.
Oh,
But I just noticed the hat that you're wearing because what does it say? Business partner?
business doctor.
Business doctor. Okay. And it's literally a picture of you is what it looks like to me. So I think that's really cool. I think in those cases, when we do things like that, especially in a business scenario or even in the corporate world, you stand out.
Mm,
And in this day and age, it's really important to stand out. You don't want to blend in with everyone else because guess what? Your clients, your prospective clients, they're going to have a hard time remembering you because they have so many people coming in and trying to pitch to them, sometimes similar, sometimes not similar to what it is that you do. So I love that you do that. I know I said in the intro where that you work exclusively in helping businesses or business owners transition from
mm.
really being almost like an employee of their business to being the owner. Because I know there's a big mindset shift in there to do that. But how do you work with your clients to get them to, I guess, move in that direction?
It's harder than it sounds for a couple of reasons. And I'll use an example that I tend to use a lot. And think of a plumber. A plumber starts their career working for somebody else. They learn the skill, they learn the trade, and at some point they say to themselves, if I can do it better than Tommy can. So they decide to go out on their own and they're decent at their job and they get referrals, they get business. And fast forward 2 or 3 years, they're still turning wrenches, fixing things themselves. And in essence, it's no different than when Tommy was their boss, other than their names on the door. And they really haven't understood that a business, in my words, is like an airplane. Its
Mhm.
only job is to get you somewhere. That's it. And which is an entree into one of the coaching aspects of let's define and let's work backwards what that destination is and make sure your business is in alignment with your personal life to get you there.
Mhm.
So, the biggest challenge that I have, number one, is that those business owners aren't necessarily problem aware. All they know is yeah, it's tough, and when it gets tough, I just have to throw more hours at it, and
Mhm.
I'll figure it out. Proud men and women in those roles. So, getting them to recognize there's another way is for a coach or a consultant, that's kind of challenge number one for this industry. And then challenge number two is, I think, really patience, earning that trust, because as you, that know and trust factor is so important in what we do.
Huge. Because if you don't have that, people buy from people they like and that they trust,
Yes, absolutely.
or
Yeah.
businesses that they like and they trust. It goes both ways.
Yeah. So those are the probably the two things. And circling back to the bad boy, one of the things that's important for me is small wins early for them, so that that accelerates that trust factor, and then they start to open up and really believe in the process and believe that there is another way,
Mhm.
and that's when the fun starts.
Yeah. Yeah. So you said something early on in your response. You were saying about getting them to go where they want to go. And a lot of times, don't you think people kind of almost lose sight because they have all these problems that come at them? So it's more about, let me just solve that problem that came at me today and tomorrow. And rather than always having that vision, okay, this is the long term vision of where this business needs to go. Not saying that you don't need to deal with what's going on now.
Right.
There's got to be a better way, right? Than just always just focusing on the problems.
There absolutely is. If you want to live longer and have less stress and enjoy the journey, there's a book that was, I think it's Viktor Frankl's Man's Search for Meaning. I think it's the name.
Mhm.
And ultimately, the byline that comes out of that is us as humans, we need meaning in our life more than anything. And the in my eyes, the best way to do that is to go through a process of an exercise. You can do it by yourself. You can sit with someone like me or someone like you. And I'm sure there's tons of people that can walk with someone that's designing their life. But what do you want that to look like in 20 years? Get crazy. Do you want to climb Mount Everest? Put it down. We're not necessarily bringing reality or judgment on any of these things. We just have to start. And I find that process that doesn't happen on day one. If you go back to my last answer, like that, know, like, and trust. After we've had some early success, that's when I start to get permission to start helping them think bigger.
Yeah.
And yeah,
Almost like dream bigger and not be afraid
right.
and move forward. What you said, just even in the back of their mind somewhere. Maybe they've never said it to anyone. And we're talking like, in this case, like small businesses, but it could even be like a CEO of a big company that maybe they have this dream of whatever it might be. But, and it's in the back of their mind. They think about it, they don't
Mm,
verbalize it
right.
because they think people are going to laugh at them or be like, no, it can't happen. It's never going to happen, that type of thing. Don't you think in that stage, that's really what you got to bring forward? Because I think that's what gives people the juice and
Mm,
excitement to move like to the next level.
yes. what do they say? If you're approaching the same problems the same way, you're going to get the same results. So pulling the uglies out of the closet and putting them on the table,
Yeah.
you can figure it out. It takes a lot to get people to trust you, trust the process to get it out. And until then, I've truthfully, I've had to step away from clients because I wasn't being a good steward of their investment because it just became obvious they weren't at a place where they could really move with me for whatever reason. And it just didn't make sense to continue and waste their time and resources. So that's for me as a qualification, that's a big factor is are you coachable?
Yeah. Yeah. And I actually think with what you just said, I think that really shows your virtue. And I think anytime you're trying to do any type of client acquisition, don't you think, or even just working with clients, it has to be a win-win.
It does.
And if it's not for either party, I always think of like the scales of justice. Every time I say that, I always think of the scales of justice,
Yeah,
where there's that little scale and you want it to be balanced.
right.
Because if it's not, it's not going to work for you and it's not going to work for the client as well.
I'm going to steal that visual. I'm just going to tell you right
I give
now,
you my
I'm going to
permission.
steal it. Thank you. That is such a great way to look at it. And you take snapshots, it might be out of balance at different times.
Sometimes,
But
right?
the point is, we want an equitable relationship.
Hmm.
And truthfully, I want it weighed a little heavier in their favor. That's just a servant's heart at the end of the day. Yes, I
I
appreciate that visual.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So you have talked about, there's a couple things I want to ask you about. You have 7 strategies to increase cash flow. And that's always important, especially now, I would think more than ever. So give us like a little bit about that. So I just want to mention our sponsor today, because if you are looking for healthier and safer products that don't have all the toxic ingredients, go to switchaway.com/rule breaker. And one of my friends will help you out.
Probably for a small business, this is like most good strategies are uber simple. And this is a process that early on I like to bring clients through. And it is get your statements, put them on the table, and then let's walk through them one by one for a few reasons. In a lot of cases, those small business owners aren't separating their finances. And
Mhm.
that's one of the
Ooh, I know.
seven in terms of deadly sins when it comes
Hmm.
to business finance. So walking through there and being transparent with them when they have a subscription that God, I thought I canceled that. I raise my hand and I go, I can tell you right now that there's probably 4 or 5 that I'm paying for that I knowingly haven't used. But this is it's not a one and done. You have to get into a routine of just going line by line and asking yourself the question. For me, the magical question is, does this purchase, does this expense directly move us closer to a sale? We can set aside this is an investment of an asset that will eventually turn into, okay, but transactionally, that's where the leaks
Hmm.
tend to be for small businesses. One of the other things, and it varies by industry, is having a cash gap. And what I mean by that is, I was in the printing business for years, and I'll use that as an example. We would buy paper
Hmm.
for the books, we were book printers. And our customers would send us a PO, we would produce the books. Our vendor had net 30 terms, and our customers were lucky to have 90-day or
Hmm.
120, ridiculous terms. So we were paying money before we were receiving money, right? And you can start to see how that gap can become an issue. And I had one business owner that really felt like they had good cash flow, like they had a lot of money coming in, and that felt like they were profitable and wealthy. And it wasn't until we kind of took a breath and walked through it and lined things up by date did he realize that, oh, my business is almost like a Ponzi scheme. If I don't get another
Mm,
invoice paid,
it's going to
uh,
collapse. Yeah.
yeah, payroll is going to suffer.
Hmm. Yeah. That's actually a really good point, that cash gap, because I don't think a lot of people think about it. And then what they'll do, in many cases, they'll put it on their credit card.
Right.
And then the credit card keeps on growing, and then the business is in debt. And I'm not saying all debt is bad, but certain debt is certainly not something that you want to have.
No. And a story to that, I had a client that spent everything, every single thing that they could put on their credit card, they did because it was a points card.
Mm, hmm.
And they enjoyed first class travel, he and his wife, to wherever they went every year because they had accumulated hundreds of thousands of miles. But it ingrained a spending philosophy in him that was nearly impossible to break. And when you're spending hundreds of $1,000s a year in credit card, knowing you typically pay it off, as soon as there's a hiccup and you can't, just spirals.
Hmm. Hmm.
Uh,
Yeah, that's never a good situation by
no,
any stretch of the imagination. But the other thing I really love is that, because I've actually experienced this in my own business, that you're paying for things and then you realize we stopped using that. Why,
right.
why are we still paying for it? And a lot of times they get you because you can pay like an annual, which is cheaper than a monthly or something like that, whether it's like a software or something like that. And then you forget to cancel it before it renews. So I'm so glad that you brought that up, because I know I'm not the only one that's had that experience.
Mm.
We're pretty vigilant right now in making sure that we catch that, cancel it, even though it might be going on for several months more. But I think that's really important, because I think one of the keys in business every day, maybe you should be looking at, what can I do to lower my operational costs? And that is, with what you brought up, exactly that.
So I'm a profit guy, meaning that that's a KPI that I am
Mhm.
intently focused on. Revenue, expenses, yes, 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 they all water into what is profit. Having a choice between building your profit up by either increasing revenue or decreasing expenses, right? One of the
Mhm.
two ways. Decreasing expenses 10 times out of 10 is the better choice
Mhm.
than trying to increase profit by bringing on new clients or pushing out a big sale, or because reducing expenses strengthens your business, and every dollar you save goes directly to your bottom line.
Yep.
So
Yeah,
that's a good
absolutely.
distinction.
I'm all about having a better bottom line for sure. I think most
Yeah.
people are as well. So, something else that I saw that you talk about, which I love this, but I want you to explain it, is market dominating position plus
Mm.
mafia offer equals printing cash. So, first off, what the heck is a mafia offer? That sounds like a killer
Yeah.
offer, but tell me what that is.
Yes. I could tell you, but I'd have to kill you. No. Uh, so I'm not sure who popularized that phrase. It might be Alex Harmozy or
That
one
sounds like
of the,
something he would do. Yep.
yeah. And the easiest definition is it's an offer that is so good you'd be stupid to turn it away. You'd
Yep.
be stupid to say no. The market dominating position is if I were to look at a timeline of things that I take a business through, market dominating position is one of the first ones because it affects everything after it if you get it right.
Okay. Tell
We
me more.
all,
I want to know all about
yeah.
that. Yeah.
So I think everyone's aware of your unique selling position.
Hmm.
That is sort of what makes you special. And there has to be intentionality about that, meaning what's special. This is a little thing I like to do when I drive down the road and I look at billboards and they say family owned since
Mhm.
1925. I think to myself, that's great, but so what? From a business, that doesn't tell me I'm going to get a better value, a better service, you name it. So I sort of disregard that. Best customer service falls in that category of, I hope so,
Because you should
right? Those
have
are
amazing, that's a given,
exactly,
or
that's the
should be a
key.
given.
I think people, unguided people, will fall to those things. Oh, we go the extra mile. I know Fred got up at 2 o'clock this morning to drive something to a client, and no one else would do that. Yeah, you're probably right. And great on Fred, but that doesn't define the business for the client.
Mhm.
So a market dominating position is taking what you do better than anyone else
Okay.
and layers it over top of the pain that the client
Mhm.
has. So
Mhm.
when those two things are aligned, it's just so powerful. The client, the prospect can't look away. I'll give you an example. I do a workshop, and in the workshop, when I get to this point, I show two billboards. One is an attorney that says personal injury, blah, 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 call this number. It's a good looking guy on a power stance on a billboard. And the other one is similar layout and everything. The only difference is it says, even if you did it, you may not be guilty. Now, if I got a speeding ticket and I looked up driving down the road and I saw that, I'm going to call that guy more than I am going to call the guy in the power
Mhm.
pose, just sort of generic. That's closer to the alignment of a problem and a solution clear. We know that people are always looking for results they don't have, or they're looking to get rid of something they don't want.
Mhm.
So, said differently, that's that whole pain pleasure. We're willing to move mountains to get rid of pain. So, in a market dominating position, it's understanding your clients so well, you know what their pain is
Mhm.
above all else, and layering on top of that what you do special. So once you do that, that sort of stops the scroll,
Mhm.
is the way that I talk about it. Just we live in a world of scrolling, right, as we all know, and you got to stop the scroll. So something like that calls their eyeballs attention. And then the Mafia offer, this is sort of the home run, is if your offer is so good, and what do I mean by good? Value. So that go back to
Mhm.
that beautiful image you talked about. The value scale
Mhm.
is tipped in the client's favor. They feel like they're getting way more value. And then risk reversal or risk mitigation. How does that look? Maybe it's 30 days return, no questions asked. Or like in my world for coaching, if I'm hired for a in a growth capacity, if someone's looking to grow, my unique positioning is I will 2x your coaching investment. So if you pay me $1,000 for coaching,
Mhm.
you're going to yield $2,000 in profit. That kind of, at the end of the day, you say, all right, so if I give you $1, you'll give me two. Okay, I could do that all day long. Where can I get more dollars?
Yeah, it cuts down on the objections.
It does. It does. And then not to go into those weeds, and I know these are the things you like talking about, objections and negotiating and stuff like that. But if they can see themselves without risk, I think you're more than halfway there when it
Mhm.
comes to that offer. So that's in a long roundabout answer. That's what I mean when I say market dominating position plus having an offer that's just too good to refuse. You could just print cash,
Yeah,
just works.
absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, that market dominating position. I love that terminology because I've always kind of used more of the it's a mix between a vision and removal of pain. and look almost like reframing things. So instead of selling, like, for example, an airline ticket, what you're doing is you're selling a vacation. You're selling the fun and all that type of stuff, making people see that instead. But I love that terminology. Now, I may steal
Mm,
that from you.
you may. Yeah, you may. Everything we're doing is a transformation. Even
Hmm.
if they're buying a product,
Yep.
a can of beans, it's something they're buying it for a reason. It's solving a problem, but there's a transformation. It might just be, hey, my stomach is full.
Yep.
Or if it was a bowl of ice cream in my case, it would be I'm in euphoria for 30 minutes.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, it's that. It's almost like you got to really focus on the end result. And it's a good way, at least when you're selling something, is having the prospect focus on the end result, like the can of beans. Okay, you can't be like, buy my can of beans. No,
Right.
it's you'll be able to prepare this amazing dinner and sit down with your family and have a really great connection moment, right?
Right.
That's really what you're doing. It's not necessarily a can of beans, or maybe
Right.
obviously that's an ingredient of it. So,
Right. And the pain for them might be I just don't have time to put it together. And the can of beans fits because it's 15 seconds to open
yep.
and 3 minutes on the stove and you've got a meal.
Yeah, exactly. Again, it's that same. You're solving that problem and almost helping them visualize it,
Mm,
and they get that aha moment. And that's really what you do and what I do is help people get to that aha moment that maybe it's something they never thought they could get.
right.
They get that path through what
Right.
you do and what I do as well. I saw something else that I agree with that you wrote about is that you should never hire your friends or even maybe your relatives.
Mm,
Tell me why.
yeah.
Because
Gosh.
I know there's a lot of people out there listening going, I've kind of done that. And some cases it
Yeah.
works great.
So my first foray into business ownership, I was the third in a three partner business. And both the other two were friends. They had started something and they brought me in to expand a certain aspect of it. The honeymoon period was great, like any relationship, but the dynamics really soured any relationship.
Mm,
It at the end of the day, I think the short answer is it's never worth it, the risk that you put on your relationships. But I think the truth is that we are more willing to forgive family and friends, and the business suffers
yes, it does.
because
You
of
give more
that.
leeway
Yes,
to your family and to your friends. I kind of have a saying, never mix business with pleasure.
right.
And I'm
That's a
not saying
great.
it doesn't. There are times, obviously, it can work. Like, for example, probably everybody out here, at least here in the US, I don't know if they're international or not, has probably gone to a restaurant called Five Guys, burger place.
Mhm.
So they started in Virginia because I actually lived in Virginia at that time. And there were five guys that were friends. And they ended up being wildly successful. They're actually, one of them is really good friends with one of my friends. And so that's an example of how, in that case, it worked. I don't know if all five of them are friends now, but
Mm.
they've made so much money. They're probably like, yeah, we're still friends just because of the amount of
Yeah,
money that they've made. Yeah.
they're investors at this point, right?
Yeah.
I look at the Wahlbergs,
Oh, yeah.
the Wahlberg family living in Boston for a number of years. There's a dynamic. There was probably dynamics in that family before the restaurant and
Hmm.
came forward, but that certainly stressed things
Oh, I'm
and
sure.
very
I'm sure.
publicly for the family. Yeah, let me caveat that by saying having family in your corner when you're going down an endeavor is very, very important. And
Mhm.
I don't want to convolate those two ideas. And if that means early on, I'm making this up, but if you're a young woman or man and you're starting a business and your dad is sort of helping you out or your mom, I'm not discouraging that, but there is a point at which you need to fly.
Yeah.
And I would say, I would even encourage you to write that down before you even know when that is. Just because if not, it'll just be one of those 5 years, dad's still here. I can't kick him
Yeah.
out.
Yeah. Exactly, exactly. I think sometimes if whether it's like your dad or a friend, those businesses can be successful, but I think only if the roles are so well defined and there is a sense of commitment that they're going to do whatever their role requires and that they say they're going to do. I think it will work in that case. My husband and I had a business before, and together, I have to say, I absolutely love working with my husband, but I had one end of the business and he had the other end. So I think it can work. But yeah, I think most of the time, I think you're exactly what you said. Don't do business or never hire your friends or
Yeah,
your relatives.
yeah.
Brad, let me ask you this. Where can people find you?
On the corner of Fifth and no, they can find me at Foresight Coach. That's the number four, SIGHT Coach, COACH.com, or LinkedIn at Bradley J. Cook. And I think
Okay.
that's the same handle as Twitter.
And Cook is
Um,
spelled Koch.
yes,
Yes,
yes, fun
it's
fact.
yeah, a fun fact. Actually, I have to ask you another fun fact. What makes you a rule breaker? I just
What makes
looking
me
at
a rule
you.
breaker?
Yeah, just looking at you, I'm like, "Hey, you're one heck of a rule breaker. I can just tell."
If God, I wish I could dial a friend and have my mom tell you why. I think just in general, approaching a problem a little unconventional first and not being afraid to test things and fail. I became a pilot. It was a goal of mine a number of years ago. And I kind of, in my life's journey, had another growth spurt becoming a pilot because you learn how to live in fear, plan, risk, mitigate. Every flight's planned out. You calculate your fuel, you calculate if this airport's closed, where do I go? And all these things. And that applies so well to business. It just made me, I think, a better business person being a pilot. Being able to approach a business owner with is different. It forces me to think differently.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's for sure. That's for sure.
Mhm.
I know you have a couple giveaways as well, and we're going to make sure that is in the show notes, the links to those giveaways. I don't know if you want to say a little about them or not.
Sure. You'll have to remind me the second one. I know the one is
One
the
is be
profitable pathways.
yes, and the other one, you might be a bad boss.
Oh, that was a fun one to write. That's a leadership book, kind of written in sarcastic language. I was channeling Jeff Foxworthy when I wrote that.
Okay.
You might be a redneck if, and so it goes through some of the biggest mistakes that leaders make, and it talks about it from the leader side and also the employee side. Hey, if your boss is doing this, here are some things you can do to work around it. The other one is Profitable Pathways, and it's the newest book that I've written. And when I say book, it's on Amazon, but it's really not an Amazon book. It's more of a guide. In there, I go through 12 levers. I call them levers that you can pull in a business that impact profit
Okay.
and go in there, define them, and talk about what they could mean in your business if you pull them. There's some real practical takeaways that I think your listeners, if they glance at the book, will be able to put in play. I talk about market dominating positions.
I love
Yeah.
that. I'm going to be using that. I already know what I'm using it for. So, so if
I
anybody
like,
that follows me and they ever hear me talking about it, know that that term is
yeah,
coming.
right. You know where it came from.
Yeah, that's right. That's absolutely right. I really want to thank you for coming on. And oh, by the way, thank you since you're you serve the country as a Marine. I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for your service. And for everybody
Thank you.
that's out there as well that has served honorably.
Yes.
Again, we just love how you have served here in the US and going across the world. Everyone else that might be listening that has served in some military branch of your country as well. We certainly honor you as well too. But I really want to thank you for being here and for everybody that's out there listening. I have a couple questions for you because you are so unique and you have something that's special. But have you come up with your market dominating position as well as your Mafia offer? So if you haven't, you might want to listen to this podcast and listen to the advice that Brad gave, or as well, just go ahead and follow Brad on social media or reach out to him as well. So again, Brad, thank you for being here. And I'm glad that we were able to connect.
Yes. So thankful. Thank you for having this platform and doing such a wonderful job keeping good information coming out to the marketplace. There's a million shows, and not all of them are valuable like yours is.
Oh gosh, thank you. No, I really appreciate it. I absolutely love doing it. I love the people that I've met through this show, whether they're viewers or listeners or guests. I absolutely love that. And I think it's great because I have surrounded myself with rule breakers, which I always tell everybody at the end of the show, keep on being fierce. And then, of course, break some rules.